But again, that's not till 2024. Under road sidewalks and trails, we have asphalt related to in-ground water and sewer work. So our operations manager tries to ensure that when he's not replacing asphalt, that he's replaced any old water lines and sewer lines underneath. And so for next year, there's about $479,000 worth of work that should be completed. Something that is on our agenda that council seemed to like is the widening of Prince of Wales Street. If you noticed from near the park and at Indian Point and for a couple of blocks, we've widened the trail with enough room to put in, or sorry, widen the road enough to put in a 1 meter walking lane. And we're going to continue that over the next 2 years is our proposal. It's about $160,000 for this year to continue that. We'd like to asphalt the Centennial Park walkways for two reasons. Number one is they tend to grow in really fast. That is as much an effort as we make, the things get washed out. But in this area, when we're trying to increase the accessibility of the town, that'll go a long ways in doing that. And so it'd be highly recommended that we do that, but that's only $30,000. As council might remember, we deferred some paving work this year that when the tender came in over the summer, it was about 25 or 30% above what our projections were, so we canceled it. But there's about $68,000 of that work to be done next year to be tidied up on part. So for 2024, if council continues with the widening of the lanes, it'll be $200,000 at Prince of Wales. Canterbury Close has never had a decent seal coat put on it. The town set that up back in, I'm going to say 2008, I think. And so there's $120,000 to get that road with its final coat and to pulverize what's there. There's a bit of a mess. And then asphalt related again to water and sewer projects is about another $320,000. Under buildings and structures, the arena is going to require another $76,000 worth of work this year. It includes windows and blinds, doors, as we continue to go through and revitalize the building for the future. The big ticket item is an arena compressor. As I mentioned earlier, is $120,000. That'll mean our main ice plant is just about all new and should give us another 50 years of use. There isn't some arena electrical and plumbing for about $14,000 just to slowly upgrade some of the facilities here. Within the courthouse, this is a project that's been deferred potentially because of weather, but because we found out there's some structural issues at the courthouse that should be addressed, not major issues, but things in the envelope that need to be replaced. And so it's about $75,000 for that. The good news with that is we anticipate funding of about 50% or better to come from the province and federal and provincially from the federal. But that'll be local painters. It's too big of a job to do all four sides. So the cost has gone up compared to what we budgeted last year. So we're going to have to bring in a larger company that specializes in big projects like that. The sheeter shingles at the museum should be replaced, and the parking lots at the arena here and Ross Museum, thank you, lost my mind, both should be resurfaced. Those are projects that so for all properties about $500,000. Oh, and I missed, the library roof has to be replaced too. It is in pretty bad shape, and we've had some leaks, and we thought we'd get a few more years out of it, but we did a visual inspection earlier this year and realized that it's in probably critical shape. So staff were able to patch it enough to get us through this winter, but if approved by council, it'll be an early spring project in order to get that completed. Part of the issue too, it's one of those flat roofs, which means a new membrane and asphalt and gravel and things, which is always a more expensive option than a typical pitched roof. For 2024, things that are on the potential is $140,000 in electrical upgrades. That's something that probably can be deferred over or phased in over several years, but under asset management, it is recommended. There's about $80,000 more at the arena. The steps at the Ross Museum have to be replaced, and the fire hall needs some work to the building itself, around $32,000. So again, all those are options in a couple of years' time. Stormwater mains, as part of the infrastructure work, are also due for next year for Alexandra Crescent and Augusta Street, which come up to pretty near $400,000. And then Market Square, like I said, depending on what council decides, and there'll be discussions over the winter about that. But right now, council gave us instruction in November to go and do kind of the phase one, which between the square and Market Wharf is going to be about $2.8 million next year. And then potentially in 24 and 25, up to $5.5 million. So that'll be discussed and further, possibly with the community, to determine what the best route to go in is. I've got something here as new ask. One of them is washrooms at the point, that in a partnership with the Dragonfly Center, we're going to be able to put washrooms on the other side of the road across from the Point Park, on the other side from where the granite statue is. Most of that money is probably going to come out of the town's portion of the tourism accommodation levy that we've been saving. That's $133,000, but it'll be available to walkers and the residents or the workers at the park, which hopefully will allow us to remove the porta potty that we've been keeping there over the last several years. With the new size of council coming on and the fact that we require half of CHCO to be down here to film our meetings right now, we are looking to upgrade council chambers, pretty near $20,000 and new cameras, microphone systems and things. But that'll be something that should be good for 10 to 15 years. Public Works is asking about heat pumps at the garage. It's at $60,000. So we did the fire department this year, and to quite success. Right now, they're using those big coiled heaters, like construction heaters, we'd call them, and those things are significantly inefficient. So this would go a long ways to helping that. And there's probably funding available to that we'd hope. And, our past experience has been you save 50 cents on the dollar for everything you invest in there. So within 3 or 4 years, they should pay for themselves. And then Public Works is asking for a hydraulic dump for their 1 ton, I think it is. And it's basically for the leaf collection that right now, for you that have seen it, the truck is about at chin level for some of our guys. And so when they're picking up bags and stuff, they're continuously throwing them up high. This would be a trailer affair that would go along, and they'd be able to just load them, at chest level or lower than chest level, and make that so much easier in dealing with it. I've also set aside council. You made a priority early in your mandate towards housing. And you've made a lot of investments this year, but knowing there's still some projects, including an RFP that closed earlier last week. We've set aside $100,000 for 2023, and then another $225,000 for 2024 in housing development costs to continue that initiative. We've also have 2 recommendations for additional security measures in town. We've been demoing cameras, and now they're actually installed in the arena here that are based on the cloud, are able to have better audio and very high quality video. And we're asking for $65,000 for next year to continue that project for the rest of our facilities. We also are asking for $15,000, which would, depending, we discussed with council, it would either fully camera a full block or partially camera several blocks. That's to be determined, but that'd be 7 or 8 blocks, and our recommendation would be in the downtown area. Not so much for speeding, but just to have an eye, and because we have been experiencing some vandalism and some other issues that have been going on and getting increasingly worse over the last couple of years, maybe have come time to have these. So there's a 5-year summary, council, that I'm not going to read all through. And remembering that most of you're just approving next year's is really, and that the 5 years is put out just to see some of the things that are coming. But the next 3 years are pretty heavy, with 4.8 million projected projects, 6.3 in 2024, 3.9 in 2025. Again, we have some significant grants, but over that course of time, our borrowing is going to go up pretty near $5 million, which is significant for the town of St. Andrews. But having said that, our debt servicing level is only 4% now, and debt servicing is what percentage of interest and principal is of our budget. And based on our current growth of the last several years, at the end of 2027, if we did basically $8 million worth of the wharf project, our debt servicing ratio would still only be 8%, which is still considered healthy by the provincial standards. But again, that's not necessarily a recommendation to do it. It's just to let you know that it could something that could be done, and discussions have to be had on how to proceed. So we're going to jump over to the water treatment plant, and right now, to continue the upgrade of its midlife cycle, there's about $126,000 set forth for 2023. The wastewater treatment plant has about $57,000 set up for it. And then we're asking to replace portions of Champlain Avenue, which would go from the bottom of a cemetery over past what I call Lady B's Museum, or Lady B's Mansion, but it's also Oppenheimer Museum, all the way to the end of the road. That line is old. Alexander Crescent, which should have been or could have been replaced 4 or 5 years ago. It was lower on the priority scale, but it should be time to address it. And then Harriet Street from Water to Queen. And then, like the general fund, we do have an extra $100,000 set aside in the water fund, or the water capital, towards new housing. In 2024, we have just water main replacements, that most of the refurbishments of the treatment facilities is completed. And there'll be 2 or 3 blocks of Prince of Wales, 3 blocks of Parr Street, and then Queen Street from Harriet to Edward, for a total of 1.4 million. Over that period, we only have a 4-year budget for that, and over the 4 years, we have about $4 million in anticipated debt that we could take on. But debt servicing ratio in utilities is typically high because it's capital intensive. And right now we're at about 23%. And if we continue in 3 years with those proposed plans, it'd go up to 36%. From staff's perspective, we've been taking on a lot of the oldest infrastructure that needed to be replacement. There's things there that are still in from the 50s and 40s. And so that's why we're being aggressive over the next few years. And the anticipation is that once we get to the end of 2026, we'll be able to significantly slow down the amount of infrastructure work, but it's still recommended that we move forward at that pace, Your Worship and Council, but ultimately it'll be up to you. So at this point on my beautiful presentation, I'm asking if there's any questions from Council before I turn the floor over to you.
Thank you. So Council, any questions on anything? I know that we've been following up since we've seen that individually, but okay, doesn't appear to be. Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Mr.
Worship.
Spear. Appreciate the presentation. Okay, so we did have a mover and a seconder. Is there any other discussion on this particular motion? Okay, seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor of approving this motion, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody that has been approved. And it is the Deputy Mayor show this evening, I think. Yeah. The star of the show.
So the next one is FA 221211. And it's the application to the Municipal Capital Borrowing Board for 2023. So the background is this. As part of the 2023 budget process, Council agreed to borrow $195,000 in the General Capital Fund and $855,000 in the Utility Capital Fund to partially finance capital expenditures. The below motion is the first step in the process and will allow the town to submit an application for early 2023 to be heard by the board. So the motion is this, that it be resolved that the municipality of the town of St. Andrews submit to the Municipal Capital Borrowing Board an application for the authorization to borrow $1,050,000 for capital expenses for the following items and amounts. So the purpose is the general fund, transportation services, resurfacing roads. The amount will be $195,000 and the term will be for 15 years. Total general fund will be the $195,000. The utility fund, the water mains for Champlain Avenue, Alexander Crescent, and Harriet Street. So for Champlain Avenue, it'll be $400,000 for 20 years. the term. Alexander Crescent, it will be $200,000 for 20 years, the term. And Harriet Street, $55,000. The sanitary sewer mains on Alexander Crescent will be in the total of $200,000, and the term will be for 20 years. So therefore, the total utility fund will be $855,000, and the term will be 20 years. Our grand total will be $1,050,000. I so move this, your worship.
Thank you. Seconder for that motion. Got Counselor Neil. Any discussion on this motion?
Your worship, sorry, I'm gonna have to ask for an amendment. It's
Did I
my
read it wrong?
mistake. We'd prepared this and then the budget was updated after. And so I would ask, within the presentation, I only said we needed about 644,000 under the utility fund for borrowing. So maybe I'd ask that a motion to remove Alexander Crescent
Okay,
from the
so
proposal.
it would be, we would need a formal mover for that. So it'd be everything that the deputy mayor read, with exception of Alexander Crescent for $200,000 over 20 years would be removed. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Okay.
can I have a mover for that motion? I've got Counselor Heenan, second by Deputy Mayor Akaji. Any discussion on the amendment? Okay, all in favor of approving that amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's everyone. It's been amended. I do have a mover and a seconder on the original still, or do I have to get another one? I think I'm good there. Am I? Just a point of order for Mr. Spear, Mr. Knopper. I already have a mover and a seconder. We've approved the amendment. I do not have to get another mover or seconder. Is that
No,
correct?
you're just voting. on
So I can call the question then?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor of approving this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's everybody that has been carried. Next motion.
All right. Reference number FA 221213. And it's the Town of St. Andrews Year-End Reserve Fund transfers. The background is this. The Town of St. Andrews maintains 4 reserve funds where monies can be put into for the future use or withdrawn for current year's use, depending on the need. As per regulations, these are done by motion before the end of the fiscal year. After reviewing final projections for the end of 2022, staff makes the following recommendations. And the first motion is this: be it moved that council authorizes $5,000 to be transferred from the utility operating fund to the utility operating reserve fund. And I so move this, your worship.
Seconder for that motion. I've got Counselor Heenan. Any discussion? All in favor of approving this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And we're on to the next one.
Be it moved that council authorizes $175,000 to be transferred from the general operating fund to the general capital reserve fund for financing future capital projects. And I so move this, your worship.
Perfect. We'll look for a seconder, and we've got Counselor Blanchard in just by a hair.
Mr. Counselor.
All in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's everybody that's been carried. Next motion.
Be it moved that council authorizes $25,000 to be transferred from the general operating fund to the general operating reserve fund to help offset future shortfalls. And I so move this, your worship.
Thank you. Second, we're very quickly, Counselor Hurdle. Any discussion on this
Really?
one? Okay, we'll call the question then. Signify by saying aye. If you support this motion. Anyone opposed? That's nobody. That has been carried. Last one.
And the
Your worship,
final
sorry,
motion
worship,
is,
who's the second? Move on that.
oops,
Counselor Hurdle very quickly. It was so quick you didn't see it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the final motion is this: be it moved that council authorizes $15,000 to be transferred between the utility operating fund and the utility capital reserve fund for future capital projects. And I so move this, your
And your
worship.
seconder for that one. Counselor Hurdle again.
Ooh, he beat you.
Money, you know.
And discussion on this last motion for this evening. Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. That's everybody, and that motion has been carried. That takes us out of the consideration of passing on bylaws. Nothing under new business, so it takes us directly into question period. Is there any questions for this evening, Mr. Knopper? Getting submitted?
No one can get on.
Yeah, they can.
Okay.
Nothing was submitted via email, your worship. I'm just double checking.
Any questions from my dear friend in the audience, Augustino? No questions for him.
Did you want the one person on attendance to?
I just asked them to raise their hand if they have a question. We'll give them just a moment. Okay, so at this particular point, Counselor Deputy Mayor's comments? Deputy Mayor Akaji.
Thank you, worship. Because I dial a ride drive, I noticed and today I was doing deliveries for the food bank. And I just want to comment that I don't mind doing the deliveries, but they put them in these huge boxes. They're very heavy for me to carry at my age. I mean, I managed to do it, but I don't like to do it because I don't even do my own groceries in that kind of a big box. So what I'm asking for the public is that if you have any extra of those bags that, you know, or you can donate some to them, then they could put them in smaller bags. It would make it a lot easier to carry the food that we're delivering. Like today was a turkey, a whole bunch of canned food and potatoes and whatnot for the Christmas dinner, and it was heavy. So just if you have extra, that would be really lovely. Or if you would like to donate some bags to the food banks so that they could deliver their food in a lot smaller packages for people who are delivering them like myself, who are of the age that I don't want to carry anything heavier than a cat. So thank you very much and Merry Christmas to everybody. I hope that you have a safe, happy Christmas, and counselors and staff, if you're working. Oh, you could even do the plastic ones. If you want to get rid of your plastic ones, they would take them. But I'm talking about, you know, the reusable bags that you could use over and over again. And perhaps the people that receive the foods could bring them back to the food banks so that they could be reused over again. So you're recycling, which I know Councillor Blanchard's big thing on ecology is to save the world, and we like to do that. So if you have these bags and you're not using them, that's a good place to put them because they've got food to deliver and these humongous boxes to carry, unless you want to volunteer to come along with a dollar ride driver and deliver these boxes for me. I really appreciate that. But Merry Christmas to all. You guys all have a safe trip if you're visiting family and whatnot. And thank you, Mayor, for all you do.
Thank you,
Fantastic.
Deputy Mayor. And I can tell you that every second trip to Joey's, I forget my bags and have to buy new ones. So I could definitely donate some. Any other member of council, any comments? Okay,
The only other thing is I will take them and over there. If you don't want to go there, I will deliver them.
thank you. Any other member of council? Okay. Myself, I'm good for this evening. So at 7:58 PM, I'll be looking for a mover to go into closed session for the Local Governance Act, section 68(1)(c), information that could cause financial loss or gain to a person under local government or could jeopardize negotiations leading to an agreement or contract, and also for 68(1)(j), which is a labor employment matter, including the negotiation of collective agreement. So a mover, please. I've got Councillor Heenan and seconded by Councillor Hurdle again. He's quick now. All in favor of going to closed session, please signify by saying aye. Thank you all for attending and watching this evening.
All right, so I need someone to bring us out of closed session, council, Councillor Neal, and seconded by Councillor Heenan. He got there before you did. So, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're out of closed session. Now we need a motion to adjourn. Councillor Neal and Councillor Heenan. And so we are adjourned, council, at what time? All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned at 8:38. Thank you. Good night, guys. Now you can put it back. The mayor will never know when I did it. Thank you, guys.
Like your post house.